Now we have the Christchurch Yacht Club. Trevor, Kite. It's on page 168. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Trevor Kite. With me is Leighton Martin, also a member of the club. The history and understandings that underpin our submission has been well documented in previous submissions and reports to the Community Board and to the City Council, and all of them reflected a close cooperation between Council and the club towards a common goal of establishing a proper walkway between Monks Bay and Sumner. Rather than reiterate the previous cases, I'd just like to summarise. CYC, Christchurch Yacht Club, intends to rebuild its boat shed and ramps in Monks Bay and also incorporate a 4 metre wide section of the coastal pathway within the Yacht Club's historic occupancy area of the estuary. This will allow the council to widen the vehicle carriageway to the full legal road boundary and also to have a separate pedestrian walkway and cycleway outside the road reserve. Without this arrangement, the coastal pathway concept cannot proceed eastward past Monks Bay. In addition, CYC intends to build an additional ramp down to the beach so the beach is accessible from both ends. CYC first raised funds for this project in 2008 and has since raised more than half the funds needed to complete to the finished deck stage. The funders are now pushing for commencement of the project this year or return of the funds. CYC has resolved the engineering issues, completed the design, obtained the resource consent and the building consent, finished the tender process and selected a contractor. We're now ready to commence building. There's a mismatch between the coastal pathway and CYC's timing, in which the coastal pathway has offered to correct by bringing forward future approved funds to pay for the 4 metre wide section of the walkway, and we're very grateful of their offer and ask that Council authorise our first request, was to bring forward allocated funding to achieve this. With regard to our second request for a capital grant of $240,000, it would appear that completing a pathway from Wheremere to Summer is only one stage of the coastal pathway concept, and that there will be even greater delay in providing funding for the other linkages, wind shelters, resting and activity areas that will turn the pathway into a true community experience. This boat shed, decks and ramps will by default be one of those experiences. In fact, of all the resting and congregating areas on the coastal pathway, this location is the only one that can be guaranteed to be out of the full force of the easterly wind. It would also provide a precious intimacy with Monks Bay and its waterborne activities for pathway users. Add on the large decks and linkages to the beach and water, and the community will have access to a unique facility. When completed, the posted pathway will significantly increase the number of people moving around the club and transiting the area and spending time in Monks Bay. Already the club is experiencing significant conflicts of use for the car park and the single public launching ramp near the club rooms. It is not uncommon for cars, jet boats, jet skis, yachts, paddleboarders and even swimmers to be competing for the limited amount of facilities in the area, all at the same time. Part of the rationale for the deck design and second launching ramp down to the beach was to help to reduce these conflicts and the inherent risks that pose to people on foot in an overcrowded environment. Another part was a desire to make the entire length of the beach accessible to the community. When designing the structure for unlimited public usage, the club has faced much higher costs than it would normally incur if it were to rebuild to a private standard on the original site. These costs include higher structural loading requirements, council longevity requirements, positioning the decks further seaward to provide for the coastal pathway, and then repositioning further seaward again to meet council's additional request to place the walkway outside the road reserve. The club has raised a significant amount of money and is now meeting funding resistance to the project. Still ahead of the club are the cost of its boat shed and its new club rooms. For all of these reasons, the club has made the second request to the council for a capital grant of $240,000 for the shared public use of the deck and ramps. This is very close to 50-50 split of those areas. Designing a structure for multiple use in this location has not been easy and has required that all structural components work together to support each other. We can talk of a walkway and we can talk of a deck and ramp section, but in reality all sections are seamlessly integrated, visually, structurally, and as a public utility. Only by fully funding the structure, at least to the finished deck stage, can it proceed, and for this reason we ask that the Council take on board our reasons and our rationale for a joint funding of the deck and ramp areas. We ask that Council approve our second request of $240,000. Construction could then commence almost immediately. Thank you.
Any questions? Leon? Sarah?
Just a quick one. Is this the best location for this to go back to where it was? Do you think under the circumstances it's the best place to put it back?
Will we put it back or could it be put back?
No, is it the best place to put it?
Sorry, I just missed it.
Would it be the best place to put the Rowing Club back where it is?
No, well, not at all, because when we first got started in 2008 on this, the primary objective was to achieve a walkway for the residents around past the rowing shed. There was only 1 metre wide section of dirt track, and to put it back there would mean that that's what you would have again, the citizens would have.
And do you think bringing forward the funding that's allocated on Project ID 9146, do you think there'd be any cost savings to the council if we brought forward the funding?
Well,
and did the project withdraw?
Within the cost we've got at the moment, I don't see any, but of course there's always the inflation risk. There's a lot of steel in the structure, there's always exchange rate risk of the steel.
Sarah?
So I was just wondering if you've been able to quantify some of those additional costs that you've incurred due to the council's requests to push it out further into the estuary. So I know that it's had, you've had to provide an extra 4 metres out for the coastal pathway, and that's meant that you've had to go further into the estuary,
yes.
And then the road reserve as well. And I was just wondering how much more expensive it is to build further into the estuary rather than back on your original site.
We've found this quite hard to quantify in the sense that in order to get this cost, we'd have to create a duplicate design, and it seemed like it was an expense we didn't need to do when it was always been our intention for the last 8 years to achieve somewhere or other a 3 metre pathway. Originally it was a 3 metre pathway past the, and so to go to spend money creating that design was really wasting our own resources. So it's quite difficult for us to do. We know that the loadings that we could design our own structure to is 3 kPa, and the loading we've had to design this is 5 kPa, which is quite a significant difference. Apart from that, I can't answer.
And once this is built, that will allow you to then do the fundraiser to the boat shed on top, and then to do the actual club rooms themselves,
yeah,
and leave space for coastal pathway behind that. And
yeah, the project was first envisaged as a boat shed for us, and we've scaled it back and are just applying all our funding to get to a finished deck stage, and then we'll have to start the process again of getting funds for the boat shed. One of the reasons we're quite keen on this is because once this is created, we can design the club rooms without all the storage that it's got at the moment, and then we'll be able to design a club rooms which is much more community orientated. We're envisaging that we could have areas downstairs and then public rooms upstairs and this sort of thing. So the end club rooms, which sit in Monk's Bay in the community, could be quite a different structure once this boat storage is in place.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Thank you for making your time available to us. Thank you.